for the solo parts. Beautiful. Once more, let's acknowledge. Beautiful. It really is about coming together in one accord. And so my message for today, we're going to go two directions with this. Maybe. I see them on TED just doing this. They don't really point, they just hold it and something happens. Well, perfect. Dumpster diving for your life. Dumpster diving for your life is our topic this morning. And see this wonderful illustration. Now, when you go online, when you Google dumpster diving, you actually get a whole lot of information. Dumpster diving is a big successful business for some people because they then take the things out of the dumpster and they sell them, they upcycle them, they take them either for what they are, and I guess they wash off the mess. I'm not sure what they do with the mess. Any dumpsters that I've ever been around, not so certain that I want to go diving in those dumpsters. However, sometimes we end up in that place. Sometimes our lives are such that we end up in what we could metaphysically call a dumpster. An illness that we certainly didn't plan. A loss of job. Conflict somewhere. A marathon being bombed. We end up in messy places. And the teacher of teachers, Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was one of Ernest Holmes' teachers, said this, and we're going to say it together, and it's the one part I want you to really remember. No matter what is going on, no matter what you see, no matter how you're feeling, the metaphysical, truthful way to handle it is simply this. This too is good, this too is God, and I demand to know my blessing in it. So let's break it down. This too is good, this too is God. This too is good, this too is God, and I demand to know my blessing in it. Okay, so Emma wasn't shy with her metaphysics. It was, I demand to know right now, and the songs we've been singing and listening to this morning are all about being one with this one. This divine principle is in us. This divine presence is us. It is what we are. It is who we are. It's every one of you. Right now, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what has happened in the past, no matter what you did last night or last week or last month or last year, it is still there. And it is good. A synonym for God is simply put another O in, is good. The goodness of life is right where you are, even in the dumpster. Even in the dumpster. The other direction I want to go with this, because that sounds sort of victimology, sort of like life happens to us, and then we can demand our blessing. Well, life doesn't really happen to us. It happens through us as us. So in some way, everything that's going on is something that we have either allowed or accepted or said yes to. So there's a book, and I checked late this morning to see if we had any in our bookstore. I couldn't see any, but I know we used to have, so they might still be in the hidden books, because we have a hidden book supply. We will check. It's called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. How many of you have read it? The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, it's not an easy book. It's not an easy book to like. It's not an easy book to practice, but it is a fabulous book for understanding that when we're in the dumpster, there's gold in there that the only way we can get it is by getting into the dumpster. This is part of the teaching I don't like very much. Because wouldn't it be great if we could just pray away everything and honestly, so much we can use this principle for anything. But one of the things Debbie Ford says, and it makes sense to me, she says, you know, when we were little children, we came in without any self-judgment whatsoever. We were just who we were. And it was like we had been born into this wonderful family with a castle. And the castle had many, many rooms, many ways of being. And none of them were judged bad. All of them were okay. And so sometimes you went in this room. Sometimes you explored this room. Sometimes you explored this. Sometimes you went way up into the turret and looked for miles. Sometimes you went way down into the dungeon. But the whole castle was yours. And then as we started to grow, we were told by society, by whomever, that there are certain rooms in our castle that weren't very nice. And we should try to stay out of them. And we actually boarded them up. And then we pretended they weren't there. And then we pretended they weren't there. And in that pretending, we made this wonderful castle that had oh so many rooms and so many possibilities into sort of a 2-bedroom walk-in apartment that has a lot of fixing up to do. You know, we made it so that it's small and constricted. I'm not talking about where you live. I'm talking about where you live. I'm talking about your consciousness. I'm talking about my consciousness. I'm talking about remember what you were like as a little child, and maybe you don't, but your children or grandchildren would be great examples for you, that there isn't anything when they're very young that they're judging as wrong or bad. It's just something to explore about being human. And if we could get back to that place, we would discover this great gold. But it's kind of uncomfortable going to discover who it is that we really are. Because even though we can affirm, I am one with the presence of God, if we're living in consciousness in a very constricted place, and even though we are made in the image and likeness of the one power, we've actually reversed that for most of us. We make God in our image. We make God in our image, and we think that God has some sort of limitations. God doesn't have any limitations. God is unlimited. Unlimited. And every single room in your castle that was closed, you did it for a good reason when you did it. Don't make yourself bad or wrong. Just notice. There might be a grander life to live. I've had so many things I wanted to share with you. First of all, if you get a chance to see the play that Rick is in at the El Cabrillo Playhouse here in San Clemente, it is absolutely fantastic. It is so funny. I left, my cheeks were aching. They were just so sore from laughing so hard. It was filled with joy. And that's one of the gifts that we can bring to any situation, to bring our sense of humor, to bring our lightness, even when it looks messy where we are. I want to tell you a story. Many of you have heard this before, but maybe you can relate to it from a different angle. In 1957, in Burma, they discovered an ancient gold Buddha. They discovered it as they were moving it or trying to move it, and I think this Buddha is like 20 feet tall. They thought it was clay. They thought it was made out of clay. And as they were moving it, because they had to move it from one place to another, as they were moving it, it cracked. And the monks were so upset that it cracked. So that night, one of the monks crept to the cracked Buddha with some clay. He was going to fix it so that by the morning it would be dry and they'd be able to transport it again safely. And he had taken his flashlight with him, and when he shone the flashlight at this crack, what shone back at him was not clay, but gold. But gold. And so repairing this thing, he spent the whole night chiseling off the clay that was on the outside. And what they discovered was that centuries before, this place had been invaded, and in an attempt to protect their property, the monks had plastered this gold Buddha with clay, with mud. They'd muddied it up. They'd made it dark and dingy, like last week's talk, like trash. They'd made it look like trash, like something not valuable, but it still looked like a Buddha. All of those monks were killed in that battle. There was no one there to say, but underneath it is the golden Buddha. No one knew, and of course the invaders didn't know, so they left the statue alone. Didn't have any value to them. They weren't Buddhists, obviously. Obviously. But here they were. So all night he spent cracking off the clay. And what I'm saying is some of our decisions in life have left us thinking we are smaller beings than we really are, because we've covered up the gold, and so we've forgotten who we really are. We've forgotten this gold inner being that is the truth of us. And so I've been left. This was sent to some friends this week. And it says, you might not be able to read the first, what it says is meditation, because some questions can't be answered by Google. It's true, just like my dictionary.com, sometimes its definitions aren't exactly up to par. Some things can't be answered by Google. And the things that can't be answered by Google are actually the things that are most important. They're what's really important to you. They are, who are you? And what are you doing here? Who are you and what are you doing here? Those very important questions. In order to listen to those answers, you need time to get still, to meditate, to truly be still, to be receptive to truth. And what Debbie Ford says is, in addition to getting still, she would have you ask some specific questions to examine what it is that you try to mud over. Now here's something, it's a metaphysical truth. Is there anyone in your life that really bugs you? Anybody that just bugs you? Yeah, good. There are people that bug you. Now think of what it is that you say about them. What bugs you about that person? Don't say it aloud, just in case they're the one sitting beside you. What is it that bugs you about that person? And what I know is that thing is something in you that you've said no to. It's something in you that you needed to project on someone else because you weren't willing to accept it as being the truth of yourself. And the metaphysical truth is you could not see it if it weren't in you. You couldn't see it to be annoyed by it if it weren't in you. It is in you. And it's not bad. It just is in you. In the meditation, I really wanted you to get the sense that you are loved no matter what behavior, no matter what you've done, because you're not your behavior. You're way greater than that. So some of the questions she suggests you take into your very first your first inner trip to discover the gold. The first question is, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? And you know, Marianne Williamson says we're not afraid of being not good enough, because that's a universal fear, not enough. She says it's our greatness that we're really afraid of. Could be. What are you afraid of? As I was preparing for this, I was thinking, am I brave enough to tell them what I'm really afraid of? And I am. And I am. Because I have to be, in order to model, if otherwise I'm just a talking head. I was watching TED Talks yesterday, and one of the guys was so funny. He was an educator, and he said, the education system, this is just a little catwalk over to here, but the education system is really written by university professors who intend everyone to be a university professor that gets into the education system. And the university professors live mostly in their heads and a little to the left. So he's saying, so any of the right-brained kind of activities won't be accepted. Won't be accepted as being good. And he gave this story, and I'm so sorry, wasn't realizing at the moment that I was going to tell this to you, or would have remembered her name. But Darren could look it up while he's tweeting right now. She's a very famous dancer. And at 7 years old, she was thought, and this is in the 30s, she was thought to be incorrigible. She couldn't learn. And so her parents, her mother, took her to a famous doctor. Is he looking it up? No, another famous dancer. Another famous dancer who got a dance studio and she was the choreographer for several of Andrew Lloyd Webber's productions. No, Lynn. Anyway, I'll tell you at the end of the service, because by that time we will have it. Anyway, I want to tell you what happened was and she was sitting on her hands, because the only way she could keep her hands still was to sit on them. She couldn't learn anything in school. She couldn't learn anything. She was really hopeless. Today, we would probably say she was ADHD, and probably she would have been given a medication, but thank goodness she was born when she was born, because the doctor turned on the radio, and Mom and Doctor left the room, but they were looking in, and as soon as they were out, she got up and was moving to the music. And he said, well, it's very clear what you need to do. You need to enroll her in the right kind of school, in a dance school. And she said when she went into that dance school, she looked around, she said, I have never been so happy in my whole life. Everyone was like me. Everyone was like me. They were creative in that way, in that they needed to move their bodies in order to learn. They needed to be in their bodies. Now, what I'm saying is some of those walled up parts of yourself could be a talent that you've left because it wasn't good enough for your art teacher, or it wasn't good enough for your music teacher or your dance teacher or your parents or whatever. And not to make any of those people wrong. Everyone was doing the best they knew how to do in the moment. So here are two other questions. What is the biggest lie you've ever told yourself? What is the biggest lie you've ever told yourself? And I'm not sure if I've even uncovered it yet. The lies that I tell myself, but most of them start with I can't. It's not the truth. It's not the truth of any of you. And then the next one, this is another gut-wrenching one. What is the greatest lie, the biggest lie you've ever told another human being? What's the biggest lie you've ever told another human being? And I'm not going to share any of those with you until I've made amends to any of the people that I've told lies to. And in fact, going way, way back. So, there are a few other questions. I won't go any further there. When you do the meditation and then answer these questions, the next question to ask yourself, not as a question, but regarding all the question, what gift came out of that? What gift came out of that belief? What gift came out of that action? What gift came out of that lie? What did I learn about myself or about life? What direction did it take me in? What gift came? Because for certain there was a gift. And it reminds me of a story that I really love. It's a story of a pastor, and he was walking outside all of these young boys in a circle, and they were having a very good laughing, and he thought, this is likely trouble. So he went over to the boys, and he said, and he saw that there was a puppy there. He said, what are you doing with the puppy? And said, well, we're playing a game that whoever can tell the biggest lie gets the puppy. And so he launches into his adult pastor sermon about how he had never lied and how you shouldn't lie and how lying was really bad for your character and so on. He went on and on. About 50 minutes later, he said, so boys, you see that you really shouldn't be telling lies to get the puppy. And they all stopped and they looked at each other and said, yep, he gets the puppy. Because it's so true. The kids could see it. The kids could see it. We think we're telling the truth when we're not, when we have those closed off parts of ourselves, when they're covered up with mud. So, go this way. It requires us to reflect on the self, to get quiet and reflect. Because when we do, we find a treasure. And that treasure is greater than anything we could imagine. And it's worth more than we could win or someone. And so I'd like to close with one of my favorite poems by Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us, and most spiritual teachings will take us in this direction, that we need to recognize the unity of life and how we are all alike in order to fully express from that God self. This poem is called Please Call Me by My Right Names. Do not say I'll depart tomorrow, as even today I arrive. Look deeply. I arrive in every second to be a bud spring branch, to be a tiny bird fragile, new nest, to in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, in order to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and all that are alive. I am on the surface of the river, and I am the bird which when spring comes arrives in time to eat the mayfly. I'm the frog swimming half their pond, and I'm also the grass snake who approaching in silence feeds. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my leg as bamboo sticks, and I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws her into the ocean after being raped by the sea captain. And I am that captain, my heart not yet capable of seeing. I am a member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my bank slowly in a fork. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom in all walks of life. My pain is like a river of tears, so full it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can see that my joy and pain are. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up. And so the door of compassion. I love you. Yes. Thank you.